Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the combined committee meeting of Tuesday, the 21st, 2020. Is there any disclosure of pecuniary interest and general nature thereof? Councillor Plummer?
Yes, Your Worship.
Thank you. Deputy Mayor?
Declaring a pecuniary interest in respect to that matter, as the office of Shepherd and Germa has been involved in that particular matter.
Thank you. Could I have a motion to approve the agenda? Moved by Councillor Plummer, seconded by Councillor Reevy. All those in favor? Carried. I have a motion to approve the Parks and Recreation Committee of February the 18th, 2020. Moved by Councillor Abdallah, seconded by Councillor Lafreniere. All those in favor? Carried. The Operation Committee meeting of February the 18th, 2020. Moved by the Deputy Mayor, seconded by Councillor Jacquinot. All those in favor? Carried. Combined Committee meeting of April the 7th, 2020. Moved by Councillor Plummer, seconded by Councillor Jacquinot. All those in favor? Carried. Within the council chambers, we have the CEO of the Grind, Mr. Novak, and Deacon Adrian of the Community Kitchen. We'll begin this with a report from our CEO, Mr. Lapierre. So, Mr. Lapierre, please go ahead.
Thank you, Your Worship. Staff is looking for comments on the draft lease agreement, which has been provided to committee members previous to this. So as a background, as directed by council, a net carefree lease agreement has been developed in conjunction with the city solicitor for comment from committee members as well as the Grind. The Grind was provided a copy of the draft document, and the Grind has indicated a number of concerns with respect to the intent of the lease and some specific clauses. And as you've indicated, their representatives are there this evening to discuss those particular concerns. So it should be noted that the intent of the draft lease is to seek initial comment from committee members as well as the Grind. So you have a draft document before you. Based on feedback and direction received, staff will continue the process of negotiation to arrive at a lease satisfactory to all parties, if possible, with a subsequent report to committee and possible bylaw, including a formal lease to council on May 5th, 2020. That's again, if we're able to arrive at the required agreements in order to place that more formal document before council. So, and also this particular draft does not include comment on a number of issues that could be considered complex. For example, with the council decision to retain part of the building, discussions would have to be had with respect to apportionment of costs, etc. And the reason why as well that we didn't put everything into the draft document is that we've been moving this forward very quickly at the request of the Grind, who was hoping to have a lease in place by the end of this particular month. So there's a number of things for discussion, but again, the basis on which staff and our solicitor have developed this draft is on the net carefree agreement to the city's benefit, i.e. at no cost to the taxpayers, which has been my direction for some time now. So that's how it's developed. Now, council, of course, has the ability and the right to grant relief on any of the items included in the lease as they see fit, and staff will take direction and continue the dialogue if there is any movement in that direction. So that's my report.
Thank you very much. Now, before I move to the council, I ask for comments from Mr. Novak first, and then I'll ask for comments from Deacon Adrian. So, Mr. Novak?
Okay, thank you, Your Worship and councillors. I guess my comment about the lease, we received it Friday afternoon, and it was late afternoon, and I guess all along for the grind, we were anticipating, I guess, to receive a lease that was, you know, the consideration would have been the same as the other tenants that the city has, like the Kiwanis or the seniors. And I guess when we received it on Friday, and I'm speaking on behalf of the grind, it was very disappointing. What was in that lease, draft lease, definitely was something we could never enter into. It was setting us up for fail. And so having said that, I think that the lease, the way it was presented, I mean, there's such a wide gap of where the city's position is right now and what the grind would be willing to commit to relocate and provide the services that we provide right now. And actually it's expanding because of what happened with the Salvation Army. So we were kind of anticipating an at least draft or I guess draft what would be similar to what the other tenants have. But to expect us to, and when we say carefree, I'm not sure the exact term, but for the grind, we were anticipating, and I guess, and we believe that we were going to be responsible for all the costs to move the grind into that building without, you know, without the city or the taxpayer's dollar. And I won't say taxpayers, there is some support that we do get, but from the city's standpoint, there was really no financial burden on the city. That's not the case here, and it was extremely disappointing when we learned that there was a solar panel grid on the top of the roof, and if you look at the draft, we were going to be held responsible for that roof if this company was to say, yeah, there's a bit of a shift on one of the panels and there's a tear or damage, you're going to now, the grind now has to repair that roof, and that's how this is drafted. And it goes on to talk about the, and I'm just going to highlight a couple of points to show it's vast. I mean, the whole lease is our responsibility, but there's a I don't know the correct term, but they refer to a pit. It's either a drainage pit or an oil pit in the second bay. No fault of the grinds. It had nothing to do with our operation, but yet we're asked to fill that in. And at what cost, I have no idea. And I mean, we're not in a financial position to do any of that. And that's kind of why, you know, it was very upsetting to see this. Because we also look at our relationship in this community as a partner with everyone in that, you know, it's part of the social programs that we deal with. So that was one of the things. There's the wall that goes up. And now a lot of the conversations before Christmas was there was no intention of the city becoming a neighbor to the grind in this building. And I think we have to keep that in mind. So now that's changed. You know, and the city is now going to occupy that third bay, but we're being asked to pay for that wall that separates the city from the grind operation. So, and this is how this draft lease goes. I mean, it would be easier to say, here's the keys to the building, it's yours, if that's the expectation. We're also, as an organization, mindful of what the CRA rules are, and we cannot use our fundraising dollars to repair, improve someone else's property. We would definitely be, you know, if there was a grant out there for windows, and I was talking to Deacon Adrian about that earlier, or for whatever, we would definitely want to apply for that to improve that building. Yes, 100%, we would be doing that. But the grind here tonight, I mean, the gap is so wide, and I'm really shocked that somehow the city could not come come up with a draft that would be a little bit more presentable to the grind, because, and I say this again as an organization, I mean, it's been very difficult for us downtown here. We've been working extremely hard to do what we do. And to see, what's happening now with COVID-19 and what, we're feeding probably 70 people now a day on Main Street. And to see where we are today, it just seems like we're just kicking the can further down the road, and we don't see an end result to this other than what we see is going to be the final answer. So I'll leave it there, Mayor. I mean, we can go in further details. I just don't want to go too far, but there's a lot of concerns with the lease the way it is.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Novak. Deacon Adrian.
Thank you, Mayor and Deputy Mayor and councillors. Thank you for the opportunity to allow us to be here tonight to be able to share with you, because I think it's important that we be able to open up these lines of communication to be able to speak about the matters at hand. First of all, I just want to thank you on your meeting on April the 7th when you awarded us the second bay, which was essential for us to continue to look at taking over that space and be able to provide adequately for those who are in need, to be able to have a proper kitchen set up and to be able to have the services for the grind and the grind client services and the community kitchen. Also, on another note, I was happy to know that a lease was coming, and we received it on Friday, and Jerry touched on it a bit right there, is that we got the email. It was exciting, and when we opened it, it was a bit disappointing. And I think the biggest part of it is it firstly says it's a commercial lease, and really it doesn't really speak to us about net carefree, and that's the biggest concern right here, because the added costs, the future replacement costs, it would not be possible to taking on. And I know that all of the members here that are, that you're here to represent the people of this city. You've taken this oath. And it's really important that we continue to work together and to be able to do that. So we're asking that we would be able to look at the draft that was there, and I hope you had a good chance to review it, and look at some of the comments from Jerry's letter and from the areas of our concerns. Because when we look at a net carefree lease, and I think if we go back to, September 17, 2019, when you gave the official permission for us to look at taking the fire hall as the new community kitchen, the amounts that were listed for the operational costs were $27,106 per year. And I guess it was my understanding, and I would hope it was, maybe something we can discuss further as well, that would be broken down over a 12-month period, and that would be basically a lease amount of $2,258.83. That would be something that we were looking at paying monthly to be able to allow us to be there. So there's no responsibility for the city for heating, the lighting, and those expenses. And I think that's where we understood net carefree was. The city would hold the lease in regards to the building itself. We would do the fit-up cost to put that kitchen in. We would do the cosmetics of painting and flooring, and we would, get, our tables and all the furniture we needed to do to set up. But we looked at a base cost of that, knowing that we could afford that, because as we spoke previously, we had made the rounds throughout this city. There was no other place suitable or feasible financially. And that's where we're at, because as you know, our donations come from the generosity of the people of this community, and they have been generous. And, even with COVID going on, God bless everyone who's making donations. We have businesses and churches who have been generous in keeping us, going. So that's where we get our funding from. We have no other sources of funding. And so it's so important that we're able to be good stewards of that money and be able to continue to put it back out into our community, taking care of those who are in need, the most vulnerable. And why it's so close to my heart that we need to be able to come to an agreement on this community kitchen and the grind is because in the meal comes the encounter. And in that encounter, we can provide the care and services for those who are in need. As Mr. Novak will mention, that, and he may speak again later, I'm not sure, but they're working hard with the Pembroke Regional Hospital with acute mental health. We're trying to partner in our community to make sure that social workers are there, that the ability to provide the care for everyone who comes in. So it's more than the meal, because in the meal allows the encounter, allows the assessment of what needs are, for those who are coming in to be able to help them. And that's so important. And as you mentioned earlier, during COVID right now, last Friday, 75 people needing meals. And those numbers are very close at St. Vincent de Paul as well. And as you know, the food bank as well, the numbers are rising. So you see that it's so important because good nutrition is important, because without good nutrition, we have mood and behavioral problems. We have mental health problems. For those who don't have for long as well, dental problems. We have also a link in seniors with Alzheimer's and dementia. So for us, it is very important that we come together as council and the mayor, deputy mayor, as well as being able to see how we can work with the Grind Community Kitchen, that we can come to an agreement of a lease, that it works for all of us in taking care of those most need in our community. Let us be a witness to those out there who need to know how we take this very seriously and that we partner together as we take good care of one another.
Thank you, Deacon. All right, we'll go to councillors now. Councillor Lafreniere.
Thank you, Mayor. Through the chair, hello, Jerry. Hello, Deacon Adrian. So this is a draft, in my opinion. At the last meeting, we wanted to expedite your move into the facility. So we basically said, let's just move ahead, come up with a draft lease for review by council. And that's exactly how I look at this. When we originally started, you're right, we said that we wanted the expenses to be not at the burden of the taxpayers of the city. And in my way of thinking back then, and I think that the rest of council will agree, the Grind would cover all expenses related to heat in whatever portions of the building they occupy, lights, things of that nature. Any expenses related to the operation and setting up the building for the needs of the Grind would be covered by the Grind. Now, at the most recent meeting, when we decided that we would retain that last bay, because we looked at the needs of the organization, the Grind, and we thought we could use that last bay. But it was really never a concrete decision, well, they're going to pay for the wall, because it even came up in discussions that night at the meeting that we would discuss that, because we want the wall built so that we can use that last bay. So we had said that we would discuss that to decide whether it would be cost sharing. That was not a final decision. There was no final decision made by council on who would pay for the wall. I want to make that clear. In my opinion, the Grind as tenant should approach the city with maintenance or renovation needs, and then the city as the owner would discuss cost sharing if it was considered a capital improvement to their own asset. And when it comes to the roof, if it's because of the solar panel being there and there has to be repairs, I think it's something that has to be looked at the time. I don't think anything's set in stone saying the Grind has to cover absolutely every improvement to a city asset. It would depend if it was considered to be an improvement to the building or a maintenance issue that was only benefiting the Grind operation, and it wasn't a capital improvement to our asset to make sure it lasts longer. Well, I think that nothing should be set in stone yet. We need to discuss this further. That's my opinion. I'm not saying that you wouldn't have to pay for some things, but I think it would have to be looked at, because it is still our building. When you rent an apartment in the city, the landlord is responsible for certain things. And I know that we said we didn't want it to cost the city ratepayers anything, but we still own the building. And that's my opinion. So I want to see this contract, the lease, loosened up a bit, so that we can look at these expenses when they come up and say, okay, well, it's the roof, or maybe it's the heating. And then we look at cost sharing on a step by step, because I believe that's how we look at it with the seniors. And I still believe in what we decided as a council. But I think that I would hate to see it you know, come against a wall because we expect a charity that's doing so much good in our community to say, well, we can't afford to put a whole new roof, we can't afford to build a wall. Anyway, I'll open it up to other members of council.
All right, Councillor Lafreniere, so I gather you'd like to see negotiations continue. Councillor Giacono, did you have your hand up?
I did, Your Worship. Thank you. I'm sure you can hear me. I'm still getting used to the system.
Yes, we can hear you fine.
Very good. I'd like to welcome our guests as well. I think we're all sort of trying to get on the same page. I found, you know, the letter that we received today from on behalf of Mr. Novak. I mean, I received it at noon. Like, it's a fairly lengthy document to review. I wish I would have had a day or two, you know, to really take a good hard look at it, so I could make some real concrete comments. I was a little disturbed by the fact that in the opening statement, you know, there was a reference that, you know, that we had, we were punitive and mean-spirited. I think we're far from that. We've been trying to work with the grind. We've taken it on the chin at the, you know, the meeting that was held, the town hall meeting at the seniors center. I think, you know, the grind, your executive and all of our council, and of course the mayor and the citizens of Pembroke, I would say the majority of them want to see this move forward because we understand the social, you know, the important social viable work that is done in the community. Now that we're faced with the COVID virus, is a whole new different set of circumstances. But I don't think we're punitive or mean-spirited. We're just trying to find out what's best for both. And as Councillor Fernier referred to earlier, you know, there's certain agreements between a landlord and a tenant. Now, pending the circumstances that you're not for profit and a nonprofit group, there may be different circumstances. So I certainly would like to see that reviewed, and I'd like to see it move fairly quickly after that. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Giacono. Now, with the other councillors, I don't see a hand up. Councillor Abdallah, do you have any comments? If not, fine. You're on mute, Councillor Abdallah.
Yeah, there, okay. Well, I received the letter late this afternoon, and you know, the end of the letter says that you know, questions the interest of the city in ensuring that the grind remains viable and a contributing member of the community. And there's no way that we want that. We want the grind to thrive. Personally, I think that the building is not conducive to what the grind wants to do. It was built as a fire hall, and it's garages, and it costs $27,000 a year to operate. And 2/3 of that, if you're going to occupy that space, that's $18,000. I think that the whole process, you know, was rushed, and that's the way it is. I listened to many people in the community, and they're fully supportive of the grind. There's still concerns about the building location, which that's where it's going to be, because that's the vote of the council. So there has to be certain conditions met, and I don't see a financial plan still, or a strategic plan. I've been asked by members of the community about a health clinic. What are the details on that? We received a letter today from the neighboring community members, and they want they want to see certain things done, like a social impact assessment, and they would like to sit on the board of the grind, 1 or 2 members, and they'd like the grind to become members of the community neighborhood watch program that we started. So these are things that they'd like to see done. But from what I read in the letter and from the lease, it seems there's going to have to be a lot of tweaking done to the lease to get to suit everyone, and it's supposed to be net care free. As far as the oil collector basin, personally, I think that that's something to make the building safe. So that's something the city could pay for. The cost of that is $8,700, I believe, in the last meeting report we had from Mr. Lewis. But as far as the wall and that goes, and the heating system, getting it changed, that's something that we have to negotiate. And I don't think, the taxpayer should bear the burden of that cost. And those are my basic comments. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Plummer.
Thank you, Worship. Councillor Abdallah took most of the comments away with the oil scepter or the grease pits. I think that's more of a building issue, that if we're going to rent a building or rent a safe space, we got to make sure that we're renting them something they want. Anything that any typical commercial lease, you rent them a safe building and then everything else is on them if they want to improve and make changes or alterations or leaks and things like that. Or typically the tenant takes care of those sort of things. Only major expenses are borne by the landlord. So I think a few things, tweaks in the lease, certainly. As Councillor Abdallah already stated, the grease pits, we can look at that, make sure that's not a safety issue, because it will affect both the bay, the city's portion they're retaining, as well as the portion we're going to rent to the grind. But I think in principle, the Carefree, yes, the grind would take care of all payments, expenses throughout the building, but the city still has to rent them a safe and stable building. That's my comments. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Reevy.
Thank you, Your Worship. First of all, I want to say I really appreciate Councillor Lafreniere's comments. I think she sees this whole situation with two hats, both as the city councillor and sitting on, is it the board? Are you on the board or just the committee for the grind? So I do appreciate what she has to say. When I looked at the lease, I thought it was pretty tough, pretty tight. And then when we received Jerry's letter, and it was later for me this afternoon as well, so I didn't have as much time to review it as I had hoped. But I also agree with Councillor Jackno that I don't believe we are being mean-spirited or punitive with this lease. It's, as Councillor Lafreniere said, it's the starting point. So I guess really my question, or what I'd like to know, and this would be from Mr. Lapierre, is what type of an agreement do we have with the 50 Plus Active Living Center? Is it similar to this draft lease, or is it altogether different? And thank you.
Mr. Lapierre?
Yes, thank you. I did call up the current agreement we have with the 55 Plus group, and I can advise that it no way resembles the draft that you have before you. The draft that you have was prepared, again, based on the premise of a net care-free agreement to the benefit of the city, so that there would currently, nor would there ever be any costs attributed to the city with respect to that building, okay, that portion of the building that the grind would be using. So that was the basis that we developed it on. So if council's now looking, what I'm hearing is that they would like to see the lease resemble more of a traditional type of a commercial lease, recognizing the not-for-profit status of the grind. That's fine. We can certainly do that, and the lease would look a lot different. There would, you could expect that into the future, there would be costs to the municipality as the owner of the asset for major things such as roofs, etc., that are typically the responsibility of a landlord. What we were doing here was the responsibility of the landlord in a typical commercial lease or even residential would be to provide for, the building, right? All those building things, but they would be collecting a rent that would be reflective of those costs, including a profit margin. So what we were looking at here was a $1 lease, and in exchange for that, then no expenses to the city for anything. So that was the premise. So I can go back to your question, Councillor Reevy, is that the 55 Plus group, they pay approximately just over, well, it's $1,047.50 plus HST per month for the space that they use on a lease basis. And they are responsible for paying the hydro, because it's a separate meter for the space that they have. The city pays the heat because we have to remember that previously we had our fire department there, and it was one heating system that heated Victoria Hall as well as the admin portion of the fire hall with overhead heaters in the big bays. So that's what they pay for the space that they have, and it's recognized that they are a strategic partner under the terms and the definition that council has for strategic partners. So the city does provide them a grant, which pretty much covers all of the utility expenses, I would say, with respect to the building. Now, they have in the past been able to access grants and partnered with the city. I recall shingling of the roof and replacement of windows and doors and things like that. They were able to access it. They have a 5-year lease with the city, and they require that in order to continue to get funds that they enjoy from the province. So that's how that particular lease operates for their portion of the building.
Thank you. I'd just like to make a few comments. Number one, the CEO mentioned this, that we do have strategic partnerships within the community. And I think this is another thing that could be looked at, because it looks like council feels that negotiations should proceed. And I'm pretty sure we could work something out. And I am sure that Mr. Novak didn't mean to give council a hard time. I understand, the difficulty we're going through right now, and the difficulty to grind the food bank and so on. So I would like to see this continue. But are there any final comments? Councillor Lafreniere?
Just a final comment. We're all in unprecedented times. We're all going through our own, stresses, and I can't imagine what it would be like working with the vulnerable people now who, let's face it, I don't know that they're distancing like they should. And maybe some of them really don't even know what's happening to the scale that's happening. So I understand your frustration when the letter came today too. I found it a little bit edgy, but I know that I replied saying, it was a draft and we're looking forward to discussing it tonight. I'm happy to hear the comments from other councillors saying, no, we want to work with this agreement. We don't think it's going to be we don't want it to be the full cost to the city, but I agree with the mayor's sentiments. I really think this should be looked at as a strategic partnership, because really it is. And I look forward to a new draft, and maybe I would just basically hope that this council would just direct the CAO to work again with the grind and come up with something more similar to what we offer the senior drop-in center.
Councillor Evie?
Thank you, Your Worship. So just, I want to be clear about where I stand. I do believe that we need to take a second, maybe third look at this draft agreement, massage it, make it more appetizing for both parties. However, I don't want to be placed in a position where the residents, ratepayers of Pembroke are taking on financial obligation for social services that is not our responsibility. And this is essentially what we could be looking at, as the city, has to put more money into the old fire hall for the grind. So I don't agree that we should be looking at a strategic partnership, because the services being provided doesn't fall within what we should be providing. The seniors, the services they offer do fall within that. But again, the grind, it's a social service. It really does fall more to the county. So those are my final comments. Thank you.
Councillor Plummer?
Thank you, Your Worship. My final comments would be that I'm certainly in favor of, council's voted to continue or proceed with this lease with the grind. So let's proceed with this lease. But I'm of the opinion that we are going to rent them a building, or at a net zero. So, but we have to rent them a safe building. So if there's certain structural things that need to be addressed, then that's on the owner, and we are the owner of the building. So if we made a decision we're going to rent, then that's fine. We proceed as that way. But I still want to see a no net cost to the city on operating costs of the building, and any small minor renovations that the grind plans on doing, that's all onto them. But I agree that major structural defects and things like that would fall on as a city, because it is a city asset and we are retaining that city asset. So those are my final comments. I look forward to seeing the next draft release. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Plummer. Councillor Abdallah.
Thank you, Your Worship. I have a question for Mr. Novak. Could you just explain the part of the social services aspect of it? The people have asked me about the walk-in health clinic. What is the plan for that, and is it with the Pembroke Regional Hospital, or would that be daily, weekly, monthly, or how would that work?
Mr. Novak.
Well, it's really hard to provide a lot of detail to that, to the clinic. We are in talks with the hospital and with the paramedics, and they've already provided some services to the grind. So with this added space that we're going to be hopefully moving into, we can now maybe, move a little further on what that would look like. And we're hoping to be able to provide, some services at the grind for our clients who their only option right now is to go to the Emerge and to seek some help there, where we're going to be able to hopefully, and I don't want to put the words into the doctor's mouth that we're talking with. Like, I really like him to explain what that would look like, but we're hoping to partner with the hospital to have some services.
Thank you.
Okay,
now,
thank you.
Councillor Reevy, do you have your hand up again? Councillor Lafreniere?
Final comment. I just want to say that I agree totally with Councillor Plummer and how he just summarized how I would like to see it move forward. And I agree. Thank you, Councillor Reevy, for reminding me that we do contribute to the social service budget of the county. And if it's going to be a strategic partnership, it probably should be with more than just the city of Pembroke. So thank you for reminding me about that. But I would just like to reiterate, Councillor Plummer summarized how I would like to see it go forward. So thank you.
Councillor Giacono, I don't see your hand. Do you have any further comments?
I do, Your Worship. I think we should proceed with additional dialogue. I mean, if we're talking to one another, that's a good thing. And let's come to some sort of a plan that'll suit both parties. Thank you.
Thank you. My next question is to the CEO. Are you okay with the direction you've just been given by council?
Absolutely. I understand the direction the council would like to take on this, and we will work on the next draft of the lease, and we'll certainly be providing it to the grind again for their comment.
Thank you very much, and I want to thank Mr. Novak and also Deacon Adrian for being here this evening. Before we move on to the second item, we'll just hold for a few minutes because Councillor Plummer will be joining me here in the council chambers.
So I just want to thank the mayor, deputy mayor, and all the councillors and Mr. Lapierre for allowing us to have this time tonight to be able to continue to join in this discussion. And we look forward to continuing to working together to get a great lease. And I know we can do this. Thank you very much. Be safe. God bless.
Okay, I'll call the meeting back to order. So item B is the Municipal Modernization Program, the Ontario Transfer Payment Agreement Project. the Operations Department Service Delivery and Modernization Review. Mr. Lewis, could you comment, please?
Thank you, Your Worship. The Operations Department recommends the committee accept the attached Ontario Transfer Payment Agreement regarding the Municipal Modernization Program Intake 1 and accept the associated bylaw number 2020-22. 405 small and rural municipalities are eligible for funding under the Municipal Modernization Program Intake 1 for reviews to find service delivery efficiencies and lowering cost in the long term. In December of 2019, the Operations Department submitted an expression of interest for financial assistance to hire a consultant to complete the operational review related to the city's work management system, fleet tracking, patrol reporting system, etc., with the plan to optimize and modernize the existing systems. In March of this year, the mayor was advised that we were approved to receive an amount up to $73,500. Sorry, having some technical difficulties here. The review will be completed in 2 phases and will include staff interviews, process reviews, etc., and the end result being an action plan for the modernization service delivery system is phase 1. Phase 2 will include the financial component and the costs associated with that action plan. To finalize the funding under the program, the city must enter into a transfer agreement with the province, a copy of which is attached to your packages. Timing is of importance, and the final report for the consultant must be delivered by September 18, 2020. The financial implications: the city will receive a maximum of $73,500, which is the anticipated cost for the consultant's review, and it's broken down as $60,000 for the operational review and $13,500 for the financial review. Thank you, Your Worship.
Thank you. Councillor Reevy.
Thank you, Your Worship. Free money is always excellent. Thank you, province. I'm just curious as to how this review differs from the previous operational review that we did a few years ago, and I think it was from our previous strategic plan action. So will this complement it? Will it be in place of? That would be my question.
Mr. Lewis?
Through your worship, this is more of a systems review. The operational review we're doing now is not necessarily on how we do business here at the operations department. It's more about adding efficiencies. So we're going to look at our present work order systems and those type of things. A lot of the work that we presently do now is handwritten work orders, providing tasks to the men, handwritten and those type of things. Looking more at doing deficiencies and patrols and so forth using electronic means, which will be a whole lot more efficient.
Deputy Mayor?
Thank you.
Thank you, Your Worship. Certainly great news. And having said that, I would so move that committee accept the attached Ontario Transfer Payment Agreement regarding the Municipal Modernization Program Intake 1, with the expectation that Council later this evening would be entering into the bylaw.
Moved by the Deputy Mayor. Seconder, Councillor Abdallah. Councillor Abdallah?
Yeah, yes, I second the motion.
All those in favor? Carried. The asphalt resurfacing, the 2020 tender T-20-04. Councillor Plummer's declared a conflict. Mr. Lewis, would you speak to this, please?
Thank you, Your Worship. The Operations Department recommends the following. Committee approve award of asphalt resurfacing 2020, tender number T-20-04 to Greenwood Paving Pembroke Limited for an estimated contract value of $242,246.35, excluding HST. The contract was publicly advertised and tendered with 3 bids received. On April 15th, 2020, tenders were opened by the Deputy Treasurer and the Operations Secretary. There was no public tender opening due to the ongoing pandemic restrictions. However, unofficial bid results were provided to the bidders following the tender opening. The city's deputy treasurer reviewed and analyzed the bids and found them to be comparable and reasonable. Bids were received as per attached. Unfortunately, I've got some technical difficulties and I don't have the bids with me, but they were included in that package. If you bear with me for a second, I'll try and get those back up again. My apologies. The bids were received as follows. Greenwood Paving Pembroke Limited at $242,246.35. Miller Paving Limited at $294,534. And H&H Construction Inc. at $344,137. The bid received by Miller Paving Limited contained two major irregularities, as bonding submitted were photocopies and they were not originals. As per the procurement policy, the deputy treasurer automatically rejected this bid. Last year's contractor for asphalt resurfacing was H&H Construction Inc. This year's pricing is approximately 12.9% above the 2019 pricing based on the unit prices received and the quantities as tendered. The department has received budget approval for 2020, and there are various line items within the budget that utilize the contracted services, including in-house road reconstruction projects. Works will only be undertaken where budget will permit. Estimated quantities were included in the tender. However, the city is under no obligation to actually undertake the full quantities. Thank you, Your Worship.
Thank you. Councillor Abdallah?
Thank you, Your Worship. I motion we accept the recommendation to award the paving contract to Greenwood Paving Pembroke Limited.
Deputy Mayor?
I would second that.
All those in favor? Carried. Item D, the asphalt patching, the 2020 tender T-20-03. Mr. Lewis.
Thank you, Your Worship. The Operations Department recommends the following. Committee approve award of asphalt patching 2020, tender number T-20-03 to H&H Construction Inc. for an estimated contract value of $129,500, excluding HST. The contract was publicly advertised and tendered with 3 bids received. On April 15th, 2020, tenders were opened by the Deputy Treasurer and the Operations Secretary. Again, there was no public tender opening due to the ongoing pandemic restrictions. However, unofficial bid results were again provided to the bidders following the tender opening. The city's Deputy Treasurer reviewed and analyzed the bids and found them to be comparable and reasonable. Bids were received as follows. H&H Construction Inc., $129,500. Miller Paving Limited, $166,000. Greenwood Paving Pembroke Limited, $209,325. The bid received by Miller Paving Limited contained 2 major irregularities, as bonding submitted were photocopies and were not originals. As per the procurement policy, the Deputy Treasurer automatically rejected this bid. Last year's contractor for asphalt patching was H&H Construction Inc. This year's pricing is approximately 17.9% above 2019 pricing based on the unit prices and the quantities as tendered. The department has received budget approval for 2020, and there are various line items within the budget that utilize these contracted services, including road cut repairs from water and sewer service and main repairs, as well as manhole repairs. Works will only be undertaken where budget will permit, and the estimated quantities that were included in the tender do not have to be fully undertaken, dependent upon budget. Thank you, Your Worship.
Thank you. Councillor Reevy?
Thank you, Your Worship. I would move that we approve the award of asphalt patching as recommended by the Operations Department.
Deputy Mayor?
Your Worship, I would second that motion.
All those in favor? Motion carried.
I just have a question.
Go ahead.
I have a question through you, Your Worship, for Mr. Lewis. Just out of point of interest, why do we separate the two, the resurfacing and the asphalt repairs? Is that budget wise or operation efficiency wise, or why is that? Instead of putting in one tender?
Through you, Your Worship, we used to combine the two and have them completed as one tender. We found at times there was difficulty with timing to ensure that we got all the work done, being one contractor. It doesn't always work that we get two separate contractors doing the work, and sometimes that can be more efficient. However, it does prove with the asphalt patching that being separate has been beneficial for us in the past, and it does also help us with budget and controlling those budgets.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Item E, the Muskrat Dam Removal Tender Contract 19-135. Mr. Lewis.
Thank you, Your Worship. The Operations Department recommends the following. Committee approve award for the Muskrat River Dam Removal, tender number 19-135 to RGT Kluche Construction Limited in the amount of $506,701 plus HST, that being the lowest responsive and responsible bidder. Committee approve additional expenditures in the amount of $20,000 for a contingency allowance. The total value of the recommendations equals $526,701 plus applicable HST. The contract was publicly advertised and there were 5 bids that were received. Tenders were opened publicly January 14th, 2020 by the Deputy Treasurer and the Supervisor of Capital Works. HP Engineering, Inc., the design consultant for the project, reviewed and analyzed the bids and found them to be comparable and reasonable. Bids were received as follows. RGT Kluche Construction Limited, $506,701. Bonashare Excavating, Inc., $588,895. Corrington Engineering, Inc., $689,680. Ross and Anglin Limited, $860,722, and Clearwater Structures, Inc., at $1,147,380. Bids received were higher than we had anticipated, so staff had discussions with the consultant and the lowest bidder on options that could potentially reduce those costs. Staff then had discussions with the Ministry of Natural Resources and Forestry, as well as the Department of Fisheries and Oceans, to talk about measures in attempts to reduce those costs. During project discussions and project review, the idea of viewing or fishing platforms on both sides of the river was considered in detail. With that in mind, the following 3 options are available. Option 1, proceed with the tendered project of the complete removal of the dam as it was tendered at a cost of $506,701 plus HST. Option number 2 would see the removal of the dam complete and construction of new cantilevered viewing platforms on both sides of the river, complete with railings, and that cost would be $560,501 plus HST. Option number 3 is to remove the majority of the dam, leaving the first section at the shoreline on both sides of the river, constructing new railings and grading over the existing portions that remain to create viewing or fishing platforms. The cost of option number 3 is at $508,440 plus HST. Depending on the option chosen, a change order would be issued for any change to the original tendered price. The Operations Department is still pursuing the opportunity for cost savings and would cancel the provisional items that were included in the tender price, which value approximately $40,000, should the Ministry of Natural Resources and Forestry and the Department of Fishery and Oceans approve those changes after they can see the existing concrete base on the bottom of the river. But that can only be done following dewatering, where the river is basically stopped and they can empty that area and see the bottom. Engineering and Contract Administration Services were previously awarded to HB Engineering Incorporated for $50,603.75 plus HST. The existing dam was built in 1967. It's never been rehabilitated or had any major repairs completed to it. Annual costs for debris removal at the dam are to be considered and do vary based on the severity of the season. Since the dam was decommissioned in 2004, about $261,000 has been spent on debris removal and very minor maintenance activities. The annual average cost is $16,300, and that cost is up from the 2017 average of $11,300. In 2017, the cost was close to $60,000 to remove debris at the dam. In 2019, costs were near $35,000. Based on what we see for debris, the logs, the stumps and branches that are at the dam so far this spring, we can expect costs ranging from $35,000 to $50,000. As we all know, the severity of weather events seem to be getting worse, and strong winds and heavy rains being more prevalent and contributing to more and more debris in the rivers. On top of the cost for debris removal, there is also a concern of contributing deterioration to the structure and safety concerns with the amount of debris that is building up on that structure year after year. As everyone is aware, regulations are getting more and more strict, and the requirements for compliance even tougher and costly to meet. It can be expected the cost for removal of the dam will be higher in the future, especially considering the contract prices tendered this year ranged from $500,000 to $1.15 million. The timeline for removal is this summer, with the contractor still needing to obtain a permit to take water. And we also must meet with the Ministry of Natural Resources and Forestry and DFO regarding regulations. The total project costs, including removal of the dam, design, contract administration services, construction activities, contingency allowance, with the provisional items still included in that tender price, is $587,465.31. There is $591,000 allocated and already approved in the 2020 budget, and this is sufficient to cover the cost of the project. Additional increases in the future can be anticipated, as well as maintenance, repairs, and further increasing costs for debris removal. Thank you, Your Worship.
Thank you, Mr. Lewis. Deputy Mayor?
Thank you, Your Worship. As we all know, this matter has been vigorously debated. There's been a motion previously to remove the dam. There has been previous motion to reconsider, which did not pass. This matter was discussed at budget time this year in January. Sufficient monies, as Mr. Lewis has said, have been budgeted for its removal. I know that there was discussions in the past, and certainly staff has done its due diligence to try and, where possible, see if there can be some savings. And so it sounds like Mr. Lewis is continuing that, but requires this dewatering to happen before those possibilities can be analyzed. And just to echo some of the things that Mr. Lewis has commented on, and certainly that I look at, is that, as we all know, if we put off certain projects, whether they be roads, bridges, and in this particular case, a dam, the cost always goes up. Nothing goes down. We saw earlier with the other two tenders in terms of the asphalt that one was, I think, 17% higher and the other one maybe 12. But anyways, if we put it off, the cost is just simply going to go up. The second one is the increased cost to remove debris, with 1 year nearing almost 60,000. I knew it was north of 50, but now it's even worse. And then finally, that if we put it off at some point, what are we going to have to do to try and make the dam safe, so that it doesn't fall in on itself, or that it doesn't pose a risk to anyone else? So having made all of those different comments, I would like to put a motion on the floor that we proceed as recommended by the Operation Department, namely that the contract be awarded to RGT Kuche Construction in the amount of $506,701 plus HST, being the lowest responsive bidder, with additional expenditures in the amount of $20,000 for contingency allowance, for a total of $526,701 plus applicable HST.
Councilor Reevy?
I second that motion.
Comments? Councilor Plummer?
Thank you, Your Worship. So I know, unfortunately, I missed budget time when I was here. I was actually out of the country, and it was debated from what I heard on budget, and the treasurer actually recommended that we might want to think about deferring this project until next year. We see that the costs are quite exorbitant. Now, the money is certainly budgeted there, but seeing that we're in a time of a pandemic, should we not be thinking about what sort of money this municipality might want to be saving or hold on to for next year as things are unknown? Also, could we not think about maybe deferring this project and then looking at a grant to get this project done? If council has made the decision repeatedly that they want to get this bridge removed, I have to go with that, that's fine. But what are we doing to, I don't think we should be putting all the money just on the taxpayer. We can not certainly apply for a grant and wait for a year and hopefully get some money to then apply for this project to proceed. I just think it's way too much money just to be bared on just the taxpayer of the city of Pembroke to remove this project. And if we're talking about the major thing that has to be done for debris removal, if removing the dam is going to solve that, the debris is just going to basically flow through and then could possibly get caught on the next dam. And I know it's been referred to as that's not our problem once it passes this dam. That's fine. But why are we currently the only way of action is using a multi-ton crane to crane it out onto the parking lot and then remove it that way? Why can't we be looking at a different option of actually just having the debris flow through under the dam and then do what it's else want to do? Can we not cut it? Can we not hire a different tender, go about a different approach? I can't believe that the only option is to use a crane that's going to cost thousands of dollars every year to remove this when there's other options out there. We should be looking at that as the root cause of why we're removing this dam and not as that's the only way to get it done. So I will not be supporting this. Thank you.
Councillor Abdallah?
Thank you, Your Worship. Before I speak, I have a question for Mr. Lewis through you, Your Worship.
Okay.
And my question is, 2016, $60,000, and 2019, $35,000 for the crane. So $60,000 and $35,000, very expensive to remove the logs. Is the crane rented on a per hour basis, and what constitutes that cost?
Through you, Your Worship, yes, the crane is rented on a per hour basis. And we have strict controls in place to try and get that work done as quickly as possible. We have in the past tried different methods to get the debris removed, and it's dependent on the season. It's dependent on what type of trees that we have there. The larger the trees crossing multiple spans of that dam cause severe issues. As well, there's a fairly strong current when all that debris is there. Even when we do it later in the season, there's still quite a bit of current there. And to put pole saws or something of that nature over the dam with a man holding a pole saw in that type of current, when it would let go, it could be quite dangerous. We have looked at it with various different contractors, including forestry contractors, to see if there's other ways around it. And we have done it cheaper in the past when the debris is smaller. But unfortunately, when we get big stuff like is there again this year, it is quite expensive to do.
Thank you, Mr. Lewis. So I wasn't on council when it was voted to remove the dam, and I followed this quite interestingly from when I was on council. Spoken to many citizens about it, and first of all, I can't support the cost, $526,000 budget-wise, and like Mr. Plummer said, the treasurer recommended we can forego that for a year. But personally, and speaking to many people in the community, I think we should keep the dam and tender out the services to remove the logs to different contractors and see what innovative ways they can come up with to remove the logs. I was talking to one riverman, and he had the idea of setting up a rope boom system to collect the logs, divert them over to the side, and it would be cheaper to construct a level area where a boom truck can come in with a large boom to go over and pick up the logs that way. And these are some of the ways we should be looking at it. I'm no expert in logging, or I just talked to one person, but I see people in the summertime a couple of years ago, and they're fishing on the bridge. They like the bridge. It's a destination point, and instead of spending $500,000, which is more than our roads budget, to get rid of the bridge, we should look at ways of keeping it and make it in an affordable way so people can still use it and enjoy it as a family fishing area, use it as a access point for walking or the bikers to a safer way to access the waterfront. You can go through there.
Councillor Abdallah, I'm going
yes.
to have to stop you here. Council made the decision to remove the dam, so that decision has been made. So please just comment on the motion.
Well, I don't support the motion. I think we should wait for a year, budget-wise, and I think it should be kept for fishing, and I don't support it. Thank you.
Councillor Giacono?
Thank you, Your Worship. I'm sorry. When I first heard the cost factor, the deputy mayor and I meet on a regular basis with Mr. Lewis to discuss some of the items that are coming before council, just so we can have a bit of a heads up and understand a little more. I was astounded by the cost, and I understand Councillor Plummer's, his frustration with looking at that amount of money. It sure could pave a lot of roads, but in essence, when we look at the project that has been budgeted at budget time, we set the money aside. And as we go down the road, it isn't going to get any cheaper. And I think the solution is by removing, those structures, those pylons, that there will still be a viewing area and an area constructed where, young people and their parents, grandparents come and fish, have a bit of enjoyment. When you get into fisheries and the Ministry of Natural Resources, you're dealing with a whole different ball of wax, Your Worship and members of council. You know, the regulations that come in regards to game fish. I mean, that whole area up the river there is noted as a spawning ground. So that's probably part of the logistics of spending that amount of money and finding out what's going to be reasonable for the fish, believe it or not, so that the fisheries can be protected for a long length of time for future generations. In regards to the crane, I mean, some of the trees, I mean, I've been on council for a few years, and I've seen that area flooding with logs. Some of those logs weighed, tons and tons. They could not be moved with a PV pole or, as easily as people are suggesting, just floated over the side. When they're pinned against that dam, there's a lot of force of the water pushing against that log. And I think the only way you can get it out of there is hoist it out of there. And for health and safety purposes, as Mr. Lewis said, you can't endanger man in a boat, out there with a pole saw. And that current rages. We know a couple of years ago with the flooding, et cetera, was awful. So reluctantly, I say, I know that's a lot of money, but I will be voting in favor of the motion based on the fact that the costs down the road will not become any cheaper. We will not have that same cost again to remove that debris, as it will be possibly carried further down into the delta of the Ottawa River. And if it isn't, and it's still accumulating there, I think it would accumulate in a smaller percentage of trees, as opposed to having some concrete blockages there for them to link again. So I reluctantly, because of the amount of money, but based on fact and the future, I will be voting in favor. Thank you.
Councillor Lafreniere?
So I know that this was already decided on and budgeted, but when we did budgets back in January, we had no idea what was coming with the pandemic. We all know that the federal and provincial governments have been distributing a lot of big dollars to go to alleviate pressure on families that have been affected by the pandemic. We don't know if because of this large expenditure, millions, billions of dollars being given out by the both levels of upper government, we don't know what possible funding may be pulled back from us because of that. Because personally, as good as some of that distribution of funds is, I'm wondering where is it going to come from. So all I want to do is just plant a seed of caution. Councillor Plummer alluded to it briefly, but it's not that I disagree with removal of the dam, but I'm wondering if we shouldn't just park this and see how the dust settles this time next year or at budgets. Like we could leave the money in the budget, but I would hate to spend that kind of money now and then find out that there's funding we rely on every year that is going to be pulled as a result of trying to, make up for the money that's being distributed now because of the pandemic by the provincial and federal governments. So I know I see the logic. If this pandemic wouldn't have happened, I could see the logic, because even if you spent only 40,000 a year cleaning the debris, you would pay for it in 14 years. So I see the logic in doing it if it was any normal year. This is definitely far from any normal that anyone sitting around our council table or anywhere in our community has ever been through. And this is far from normal. So I would ask that maybe consider putting it off a year, because let's face it, this is not business as usual right now. So although we stood by and we made this decision, like I said, we didn't know what was coming, and we still don't know what's coming down the pipe. So I would ask you to consider just maybe parking this, tabling this whole idea for a year, because like I said, I would hate to see that we're in a really financial situation down the road because we went ahead with this project.
I'd like to make a comment in regards to the dam. We've gone through 2 major floods in the city. And the first time this particular item was discussed was the first flood, where we had a lot of landslides, if you wish, along the Muskrat, where some homes lost an awful lot of property. We had a visit in the last flood from the Minister of Municipal Affairs, who came up and had some idea of what was happening to the residents along the river. And we applied for a grant, and that particular study, I gather, is close to being finished. So we should get some information in regards to that. But at the time, that was one of the major reasons. Now, this year, it looks like we're fortunate. We probably won't have any flooding, but I think removing the dam is important. I don't think it'll get any cheaper in the future. I understand Councillor Lafreniere's concern in regards, yes, these are different times, moving forward, so it's going to be difficult, but I also worry about the homes along the river. So I will be supporting this motion. Any further comments?
Record vote, please.
Councillor Plummer's asked for a recorded vote.
Deputy Mayor Gervais,
Yay.
Councillor Abdallah,
Nay.
Councillor Giacono,
Yay.
Councillor Lafreniere,
Nay.
Councillor Plummer,
Nay.
Councillor Reevy,
Yay.
and Mayor Lemay.
Yay.
So the yeas have it 4 to 3.
Okay, the motion is passed. We'll
Your
move on.
worship,
Yes, go ahead.
your worship, if I could just get clarification of the motion, please.
Deputy Mayor?
Is the motion for option 1 to remove completely, or is there consideration for the viewing platforms? Thank you.
Your worship and Mr. Lewis, my motion was option one, effectively the recommendation that's contained at the first part of your report for the $506,701 plus HST with a contingency allowance of 20,000. So effectively, yes, it's the complete removal. Option one.
Thank you, your worship.
Thank you. We'll move on to item F, the Kiwanis Walkway access. Mr. LaPierre.
Yes, Your Worship. This matter was raised to me by Councillor Abdallah, and he was going to ask that it be added to the agenda. However, with a few minor changes that we made to the agenda today, we were able to just place it on the agenda already. So I'll just provide a brief staff background report, and then I would anticipate Councillor Abdallah will want to speak to this matter. So in conjunction with the declaration of emergency regarding COVID-19 by the province of Ontario, all recreation amenities were required to close, including playgrounds, sports fields, basketball, tennis courts, off-leash dog parks, etc. Green spaces in parks, trails, ravines, and conservation areas that are not otherwise closed by this order were permitted to remain open for walk-through access only, but individuals are required to maintain safe physical distancing of at least 2 meters. So the city has been moving along with respect to this, and the Parks and Rec staff have placed signs at various parks and blocked off playgrounds. We have as well provided for signs at both ends of the Kiwanis walkway to remind walkers of the social distancing requirements. So we understand that there is some discussion anyways about the possible lessening of restrictions as we move forward through this pandemic. And some municipalities have actually started looking at that. And I can advise that as it relates to the Kiwanis walkway, which is, as I understand, Councillor Abdallah's concern here, staff has been monitoring and have not seen a lot of use yet, but we recognize as it gets warmer, there will be more people on it. But thus far, we can advise that people tend to be respecting the social distancing parameters laid out. So that's staff's report.
Thank you. Councillor Abdallah.
So I been talking to some people in Pembroke, and personally I've been following, I know everybody else has, Mayor Ford's news conferences during the day. And the province yesterday, or a couple of days ago, came out with their modeling figures yesterday. And we're getting better, but we're not over the hump. And the provincial legislation allows for citizens to walk through a park, but they can't sit on the bench, can't stay there. The province is asking us to stay home and only go out for groceries, pharmaceuticals, or if they need to have a medical appointment. This is a crisis we're in. It's a big thing. It's very serious. The waterfront boardwalk and the Kiwanis walkway are destination points. They're not near any homes. Anybody that goes there in the car or gets out to walk normally or walks down there, they're going for a stroll. Now, I realize that people need to get out, walk around their neighborhood and that, but you know, back in Philadelphia during the Spanish flu, Philadelphia lessened their restrictions, and then the second wave came and more thousands of people died. So it's our responsibility as a city and a city council to implement the necessary rules. And I believe that we need to close off access to the Kiwanis walkway and the waterfront boardwalk until at least May 12th, upon advisement of the Brantford County Health Unit, to coincide with the provincial emergency plan. Because as I said before, these are not destination points. These are destination points. People are going there to walk. It's not as if I live near Kinsman Park and I'm walking through the park to go over to Carrefour. That's a totally different thing. People are walking down the marina, going out and going for a stroll. Some of them, I realize not a lot now, but once the weather gets better, maybe people will stay home. This is just a safety measure. Better to be safe than sorry. Final comment is that I realized that in the comment that Mr. Conroy made, manager of Parks and Rec, how would we police it? Well, we put up the yellow tape, we put up signs, and hopefully, I have confidence in the citizens of Pembroke that if we do a PR campaign and they see the yellow tape, they won't go down there. I know during the flood, people were walking over from Algonquin College and going around the marina, even though it was closed off. So I'd like to make a motion tonight that we temporarily close off access to the Kiwanis Walkway and the waterfront boardwalk until at least May 12th, and review it then upon advisement of the Renfrew County Health Unit and the Ontario Ministry of Health, if I get a seconder for that. Thank you.
I noticed there are 2 hands up. Is there a seconder for the motion? I can't tell. I don't think there's a seconder. Councillor Lafreniere?
I'll second it for discussion,
Thank you. Okay,
and I'll make a
comment.
comment.
Yes, you can. Mhm.
I'm seconding it, but I don't necessarily support it, so I'm just telling you why. If anything, I agree, people shouldn't be sitting on the park bench, 3 or 4 people mingling about. However, I think that a lot of people walk from one end of Pembroke, use the trail to get to the other end. As long as they're not gathering in groups, which I have noticed that people are being quite responsible even when they're walking. They'll cross the street if they think they're going to be too close to you when you're approaching them. If anything, I would say just maybe ribbon off, put yellow ribbon around any benches or things so people aren't sitting and loitering. But no, I think that it's a thorough way for people. I don't see a lot of people gathering, as I said. So I don't see the purpose to actually make a deal and say it's closed. However, if we could just somehow prevent them from sitting on the benches and that type of thing, then that would be my suggestion.
Councillor Reevy?
Thank you, Your Worship. We've already put up the signage advising people to keep social distancing foremost in their mind when they're out. I was on the walkway yesterday. There were quite a few people, and it was amazing how respectful people were to maintaining that distance. It's dry. So if you have to step off of the asphalt, it's quite easy to do. It's not, we haven't been flooded. There aren't puddles. It's perfectly dry. Very easy to maintain the distancing. I agree with Councillor Frenier in if there was anything we could do to keep people from sitting on the benches. But who's to say that 2 people sitting on a bench aren't from the same household? It's hard to police that without maybe putting our bylaw enforcement people in harm's way. Just a comment. I've been following Dr. Vera Etche's daily basis. She's the medical officer of health for Ottawa Public Health. She's advising people to get out, to have walks, to maintain that social distancing, but to keep healthy, get some fresh air. So I don't support the motion. I think that we leave it up to people to do what they know they need to be doing.
Councillor Giacono?
Thank you, Your Worship. I will not be agreeing with the suggestion that we do that. And primarily, it's okay if you own your own home and you can hang around in your driveway, which I've been doing with some little projects and things, or you can go in your backyard and rake. But what about somebody who lives in an apartment, doesn't have a backyard or any place to go? And as Councillor Reevy said, fresh air is a great elixir, to keep you healthy, hopefully, if you're within the social distancing. And I think most people respect that. But until it becomes a real emergency within our own community, I think we should allow people some access to get outside that don't have the capabilities or the facilities of owning their own home. That would be unfair to them. Thank you.
Thank you, Your Worship. I, again, will not be supporting the motion. I think the ratepayers, certainly Pembroke, I've noticed, are certainly keeping themselves a distance when they're walking about town. I think walking is a good exercise to get people out of their house instead of getting a little stir crazy. Also, I think you're probably more at risk going shopping and running into multiple people in a store than you would actually be more in close contact in the outside. So I think walking certainly through the trail should still be allowed. Thank you.
I disagree with the motion as well. At the social distancing, I have a lot of faith in the people of the city of Pembroke that they will keep their distance, and I agree fully with Councillor Plummer. You're going to run into more problems, I think, shopping than walking along the walkway. Councillor Lafreniere, did you have another comment? I noticed your hand up. Okay, I'll call the motion. All those in favor? All those against? Motion defeated. Thank you. Could I have a motion to adjourn this particular meeting, please? Moved by Councillor Plummer, seconded by Councillor Reevy. All those in favor? We are now adjourned. I'd like to call the Striking Committee meeting of April the 21st, 2020 to order. Is there any disclosure of your interest and general nature thereof? None. Could I have a motion to approve the agenda? Moved by Councillor Plummer, seconded by Councillor Reevy. All those in favor? Carried. Receiving the minutes of October the 1st, 2019. Moved by Councillor Reevy, seconded by the Deputy Mayor. All those in favor? Carried. Was there any business arising from the minutes? None? Okay, under new business, the Pembroke Public Library Board member nomination. Mr. Lapierre?
Yes, Your Worship. Pembroke Public Library Board, as a result of the resignation, has a vacancy, and an application from Mr. Justin Jeffrey is before you this evening for your approval and recommendation to the City of Pembroke Council. This appointment would be to the current term of council, which is November 14th, 2020, and there's no financial impact with respect to this regarding the city.
PBIE nomination.
Okay, yes, when you mentioned Pembroke Public Library, I was just doing the one. If you'd like to do both together, that's fine as well. I'll move to that one.
Okay.
So again, with respect to the Pembroke Business Improvement Area and a resignation, a nomination has been received from a Mr. Mike Powell from Mike Powell Consulting, replacing Dan Lavadier on the PBI Board of Management. Again, this appointment would be to the end of the current term of council, and as these individuals are not paid, there would be no remuneration involved.
Thank you. Deputy Mayor?
Thank you, Your Worship. Dealing with both of them, I guess, in a single shot, so to speak, I would so move that both be appointed to the respective boards that they've applied to.
Thank you. Councillor Abdallah?
I'll second the motion.
All those in favor? Okay, carried. Could I have a motion to adjourn the Striking Committee meeting? Moved by Councillor Plummer, seconded by the Deputy Mayor. All those in favor? We are now adjourned. I'd like to call this council meeting of Tuesday, April the 21st, 2020 to order. And in regards to our reflection, our council and the Pembroke community offer our sincere condolences to the people of Nova Scotia having suffered a terrible tragedy on the weekend. Please use this moment of reflection to pray for the families and friends of those who lost their loved ones. Thank you. Is there any disclosure of pecuniary interest and general nature thereof? None. In regards to our minutes, approve the minutes from our council meeting held on April the 7th, 2020. Moved by Councillor Reevy, seconded by Councillor Plummer. All those in favor? Okay, carried. Adopting the minutes from our committees, Parks and Recreation Committee meeting of February the 18th, 2020, and the Operations Committee of February the 18th, 2020. Moved by Councillor Lafreniere, seconded by Councillor Plummer. All those in favor? Carried. The combined committee meeting, which was held on April the 7th, 2020. Moved by Councillor Reevy, seconded by Councillor Abdallah. All those in favor? Okay, carried. Receiving the minutes from the local boards, the Pembroke Public Library, which was meeting held was on February the 20th, 2020, and March the 16th, 2020. Moved by Councillor Plummer, seconded by Councillor Jacquinot. All those in favor? Carried. Staff reports, the delegation of authority. Mr. Lapierre.
Yes, thank you, Your Worship. This is a staff information item. You do have a bylaw on the docket for later this evening for consideration, but I just wanted to explain what the intent is. So staff is recommending that council approve delegation of authority regarding the administration of council-approved policies and bylaws to the CAO acting in conjunction with the council's executive committee during the current provincial state of emergency. So given social distancing regulations and other implications associated with the current situation, adjustment to the administration of various council-approved policies and bylaws is and may be required where compliance would not be possible without impacting the efficient management of the municipality as well as the safety of staff, of contractors, of those that wish to do business with the city. So as an example, with respect to the city's procurement policy, which is approved by council, currently requests for proposals are to be submitted by hard copy only, and tender openings are required to be done in public. So these are certainly worthwhile things under normal circumstances. However, staff recognizes that these are not normal circumstances. And again, in order to protect the safety of individuals as well as to move the business of the municipality forward in an efficient manner, we recognize that, you know, as it relates to the tender openings, that they should be done or could be done by virtual means, as well as RFPs can be accepted by email. But currently, the way that it's stated in council-approved policies, it does not allow for that. So staff recognizes the requirement to abide by council-approved policies. So that's why what we're doing is we're seeking direction or the ability to not follow those policies in these circumstances for the good and valid reasons that we've indicated. And also recognizing and respecting the checks and balances of council. The recommendation is that the CAO be granted this delegation authority, but only in consultation with the executive, being the mayor and the deputy mayor, and only thereafter providing an information report to council so that you can see what we've done, and recognizing that as soon as the province of Ontario has indicated that the emergency is no longer required, therefore we will return to the current policies. So that's the staff report.
Thank you for the report. Councillor Abdallah, did you have a question? I noticed your hand up.
Mr. Lapierre, through you, Your Worship, you're looking for a motion?
It will be coming up, you'll notice, on the
Okay.
agenda. Okay,
Thank you.
thank you. The Combined Committee Muskrat River Dam Removal, Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Your Worship. Your combined committee of council begs to report and recommend from its meeting held this evening as follows. Moved by myself, second by Councillor Abdallah, that tender contract number 19-135 for the Muskrat River Dam removal be awarded to RGT Kluche Construction Limited in the amount of $506,701 plus HST, that the operations department be authorized additional expenditures in the amount of $20,000 for a contingency allowance. The total value of the recommendations equals $526,701 plus applicable HST.
Moved by Deputy Mayor Gervais, seconded by Councillor Abdallah, that tender contract number 19-135 for the Muskrat River Dam removal be awarded to RGT Kluche Construction Limited in the amount of $506,701 plus HST, that the Operations Department be authorized additional expenditures in the amount of $20,000 for a contingency allowance. The total value of the recommendations equals $526,701 plus applicable HST.
I would ask for a recorded vote on this motion.
Okay, we'll have a recorded vote.
I'd like to speak. Your Worship?
Oh, go ahead.
So for the record, I just wanted in the minutes to reflect that I seconded the motion for discussion purposes. I'm not in favor of the motion. Thank you.
Thank you.
Deputy Mayor Gervais.
Yay.
Councillor Abdallah.
Nay.
Councillor Jacquinot.
Yes.
Councillor Lafreniere.
Nay.
Councillor Plummer.
Nay.
Councillor Reevy.
Yay.
Mayor Lemay.
Yay.
Motion carries 4-3.
Motion carries. Combined Committee meeting, the PBI and Library Board appointments. Councillor Abdallah.
Thank you, Your Worship, fellow councillors. Your striking committee of council begs to report and to recommend from its meeting held this evening as follows. Moved by myself, seconded by Deputy Mayor Ron Gervais, that Mike Powell be appointed to the PBIA Board of Management and that Justin Jeffrey be appointed to the Pembroke Public Library Board until the end of the current term of council.
Thank you. Moved by Councillor Abdallah, seconded by Deputy Mayor Gervais, that Mike Powell be appointed to the PBI Board of Management and that Justin Jeffrey be appointed to the Pembroke Library Board until the end of the current term of council. All those in favor? Carried. Bylaw 2020-22, the Municipal Modernization Program Agreement. Councillor Plummer.
Thank you, Your Worship. Moved by myself, second by Councillor Reevy, that bylaw 2020-22, a bylaw to authorize entering into a contribution agreement under the Municipal Modernization Program Intake 1 between Her Majesty the Queen in right of the Province of Ontario as represented by the Ministry of Municipal Affairs and Housing and the Corporation City of Pembroke be adopted and passed. And further, the said bylaw be signed by the Mayor and Clerk and sealed with the seal of the Corporation.
Thank you. Moved by Councillor Plummer, seconded by Councillor Reevy, that bylaw 2020-22, a bylaw to authorize the entering into a contribution agreement under the Municipal Modernization Program Intake 1 between Her Majesty the Queen in right and the Province of Ontario as represented by the Minister of Municipal Affairs and Housing and the Corporation of the City of Pembroke be adopted and passed, and further that the said bylaw be signed by the Mayor and Clerk and sealed with the seal of the Corporation. All those in favor? Carried. 2020-26 Delegate Council's Authority. Councillor Lafreniere.
Moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Jackno, that bylaw 2020-26, a bylaw to delegate council's authority, be adopted and passed. And further that the said bylaw be signed by the mayor and clerk and sealed with the seal of the corporation.
Moved by Councillor Lafreniere, seconded by Councillor Jackano, that bylaw 2020-26, a bylaw to delegate council's authority, be adopted and passed. And further that the said bylaw be signed by the mayor and clerk and sealed with the seal of the corporation. All those in favor? Carried. Mayor's report. As the weather gets warmer and our thoughts turn to spring, it's critical to remember that social distancing and effective hand washing are still the most critical tools we have in preventing the spread of COVID-19. Once again, I would like to thank the essential workers working on the front lines in our community for their tireless efforts and commitment to keeping the City of Pembroke safe and functioning during these very challenging times. It is important to remember that this pandemic will end, businesses will reopen, the economy will restart, and kids will go back to school. Until then, we must stay the course and remain focused on reducing the spread of COVID-19, keeping the most vulnerable citizens in our community out of harm's way. When the City of Pembroke reopens for business, it will be a result of the sacrifices and efforts being made by the entire community. Take care, everyone, and be well. Is there any notices of motion? Deputy Mayor?
Thank you, Your Worship. It is my intention that at the next council meeting of May 5th, that I will be bringing forward a motion that council send a resolution to the Ontario government that provincial orders regarding COVID-19 receive more local flexibility to properly address local needs and loosen provincial orders in the municipality of the City of Pembroke while continuing to implement physical distancing and other guidelines so as to reopen some activities and to reopen businesses in the City of Pembroke.
Thank you. Councillor updates. Councillor Reevy. Councillor Reevy? Councillor Reevy, we need your mic on.
I touched it twice. Thank you, Your Worship. So this will be a report for Renfrew County and District Health Unit as a board member. In the words of our acting medical officer of health, Dr. Robert Cushman, who posted a wonderful YouTube video on the health unit's Facebook page, let's keep up the good fight. So we're doing remarkably well in the city and Renfrew County as a whole. Currently, we are sticking at 14 confirmed cases. They've now added to the website an area for resolved cases, which we have 6. There's still currently only 1 death, thankfully. There's been 1,129 total tests. 998 of those are negative, very good. And there are still 117 tests that are pending results. So we still would like to direct people to the health unit's Facebook page, as well as the website contains all the pertinent information that people need to be aware of in these times, the socials as well. Now, there's something new that's come up. It's called a COVID-19 response site. And you can find the information for that on the Renfrew County District Health Unit Facebook page. So this response site is a support service to help seniors and adults living with disabilities in Eastern Ontario, Ottawa, Renfrew County and District, and the Eastern counties. The website is all lowercase. Simply communitysupport.covidresponse.ca. So interesting support for these people who may need it now. Also, a Twitter message on behalf of the health unit has come out, and I thought it was important enough to mention that they are saying excessive or high risk cannabis and alcohol use can weaken your immune system and make you more susceptible to COVID-19 and other illnesses. So something to be aware of. We're hearing a lot of these reports on the news. So our health unit's backing that as well. As far as the call responses that they're keeping track of, I did mention in our last meeting, to date, so from March 18th to yesterday, they have fielded 3,956 calls. The numbers are coming down, but they're still there answering questions to all of the community, from residents, healthcare facilities, workplaces, daycares, government, etc. And finally, as far as the unit is concerned, in their own health and safety update as of Friday, they have seen a change now to their own self-assessment, staff self-assessment, which they have to do daily. They have changed, there's a revision that the most high-risk individuals have to report where they're coming from, any additional or atypical symptoms, and a key one is lowering the age of risk from 70 to 65. So there are a few staff members that is impacting, and that's all being looked after. So again, we seem to be doing well. Dr. Cushman is giving regular updates, and very worthwhile to see what he has to say, because it's our local community and not Ottawa. So anyway, like he says, keep up the good fight. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Lafreniere.
Yes, thank you, Christine. On the heels of her report or her update, I have become involved in a review committee that will be looking over applications that were received for the grant money that was announced by the government to address vulnerable people in our community. $1.7 million was allotted to the county, and that includes the city of Pembroke, to help organizations that help those that are vulnerable, at risk of homelessness, that type of thing. So organizations such as food banks, shelters, things of that nature. There has been 23 requests for funding received to date, and our committee will be reviewing them this week, because distribution of the dollars is of the utmost priority right now, to get the money in the hands of those that need it. And so by Monday, we should be releasing who has received the money. And I must say that there are several that are located within the city limits, but again, it's throughout the county. So I just wanted to update council. One thing that did come up was the fact that if someone is homeless and they're in the city of Pembroke, where do they use a safe washroom facility? And so that is something I will be discussing. There is dollars available to the city as well. If we had to set up a public washroom that needed to be, sanitized regularly, we all know the protocol that we've been going through everywhere we go. So that will be discussed in the next few days. And so I just want to let everyone know here that if we do anything in relation to the homeless at a city level, that we will be compensated through that fund.
Thank you. Councillor Abdallah.
Thank you, Your Worship. Just want to let everybody know that starting last Wednesday, all across Canada, every Wednesday has become National Takeout Day, and the PBA is doing a promotion, and all across Pembroke, and we're encouraging everyone on Wednesday to buy from your local eateries and restaurants. I've bought different foods from different establishments. And remember that when we go looking for charity support, many of the restaurants and eateries support many charities in Pembroke. So it's something we can give back. It's hashtag Takeout Day on social media. And we can all enjoy some great food in Pembroke. and support local business. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Abdallah. Now could we have the confirming bylaw, Councillor Abdallah?
Moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Andrew Plummer, that bylaw 09-2020 to confirm the proceedings of the regular meeting of council of April 21st, 2020 be adopted and passed, and further, that the said bylaw be signed by the mayor and clerk and sealed with the seal of the corporation.
Moved by Councillor Abdallah, seconded by Councillor Plummer, that bylaw 09-2020 to confirm the proceedings of the regular meeting of council of April 21st, 2020 be adopted and passed. And further, that the said bylaw be signed by the mayor and clerk and sealed with the seal of the corporation. All those in favor? Carried. I have a motion to adjourn, please. Moved by Councillor Plummer, seconded by Councillor Reevy. All those in favor? We are now adjourned. Thank you, everybody.